Hello everybody, my name is Sophie and welcome back to another video. Rebecca Yarros is an author that has taken the world by storm, and I think that a lot of people keep forgetting that she has been publishing for many years, 11. In 2014 she published her first book, and since then she's continuously published more and more contemporary romance. She didn't start out with fantasy, and surprisingly, or maybe not, Fourth Wing, which she's most known for, is her first romance fantasy. Before that, she was just writing contemporary romance, more specifically military romance, more specifically, that's it. Of course, my interest was piqued at this because I am a self-declared #1 Fourth Wing hater, and I've always wondered what her romance contemporary books were like. I really want to become more creative with my videos and my online presence in general. I feel like because there are so many tools out there, it can quickly become overwhelming and like you don't know where to start. And I especially want to step up my game on different social media platforms, if you know what I mean. I feel like through classes on Skillshare, it becomes easier to see like the light at the end of the tunnel. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives, with thousands of classes led by industry experts across film, illustration, design, freelance, productivity, and more. It can help you take your career, skills, hobbies, and passions to the next level. Especially Maggie Starr's class, Social Media Content Creation in Canva from Beginner to Advanced, is helping me with this endeavor of mine. She displays how to create really beautiful templates and how to create your own GIFs or GIFs. Are we gonna fight over it? I want to impress you guys. So if you see a new banner on my channel, or maybe new thumbnails, more creative thumbnails, you know, mind your business. Maggie told me. If you're interested in her class or any other of the creative classes that are available on Skillshare, the first 500 people who click the link in my description get 1 month free of Skillshare. So thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video, and let's get onto the review. Now I have to say, I am not a contemporary reader. I don't find contemporary books interesting because they are boring to me. They are very like, there's just not that much time to do anything. Worst that can happen is somebody cheats on somebody. I need death. No, but I've just know from experience, I've never liked a romance book. I have liked fantasy books, but I've never liked a romance book. And so, for some reason, I felt compelled to give Rebecca Yarros' contemporary romance a try. The book that I chose to review by Rebecca Yarros is The Things We Leave Unfinished by Rebecca Yarros. It came out in 2021, which for some reason, when I started reading it, I thought it was her most recent one. I don't know why I told myself that. Her most recent one is called Variation, and she's also currently writing one. She said in an interview that she's gonna write one before she writes the next Fourth Wing book, which I hope she's gonna take a long time writing that, so we don't have to read a new Fourth Wing book. Now, I ended up deciding to read this one because it was the one with the most rankings or ratings on Goodreads. It had like 250,000. The other books, some of them were shy of 100,000 even. So I was like, okay, if this is the most well-known contemporary book that she has written, then I'm just gonna read this one. It was also between like this one and her most recent one, and also the first one. But then I was like, that just wouldn't be fair. It just wouldn't be fair. Who am I to judge someone on the first thing they've ever written and created creatively? I don't want people to judge me based on my first video I ever uploaded where I sit half hunched, full body shot. Oh, I actually also debated for a very long time to read the one about the Afghanistan war. She wrote a book where 2 Americans fall in love in Afghanistan during the Afghan war, where the dude is fighting. He's of course a pilot, because we'll talk about why everybody's a pilot. Like the girl is a journalist or something and her sister gets lost at the front, and so she decides as a civilian to go to Afghanistan and save her. I didn't read the book, I don't want to speak on it. The reason I decided against it is I did get it, and I opened the book and I read the first line, and it's from the dude's perspective while he is in Afghanistan, and it reads, "This was not the Maldives." And so I closed the book and never opened it again. If you're curious why all of Rebecca Yarros' books seem to deal with the military, she loves the American military. That's why it says America. We love America. At least Rebecca Yarros does. I don't want to speak for myself. Rebecca Yarros is obsessed with the military. She is a military brat, which means that her parents were in the military, which I learned because I did a podcast episode about her one time. I'm going to link it down below. And I was like, who the fuck calls themselves a military brat? Because I didn't know it was a known expression. I was like, who the fuck calls themselves a brat? And then everybody to this day, and I uploaded that like 2 years ago, people still comment, military brat is the child of 2 military parents. I know! It's been 2 years! Anyway, she's a military brat, and then she married her husband, Jason, who is, which I'm mentioning his name because we'll talk about it when we talk about the book, who was a pilot in the army for 22 years. And then in 2009, and he fought in the Afghan war, okay? So she has credentials when it comes to the book. Maybe she went there and they fucked in the tent. Anyway, he was a pilot for the army and he fought for 22 years and he especially fought in the Afghan war. And then he was asked to extend his service in 2019 and she declined, and she wrote an open letter to the military saying that they would decline his $150,000 bonus and he would retire because she just couldn't do it anymore, and that the army should think about all of the divorces that are happening between military wives and their spouses. Anyway, that's why all of her main characters, or the dudes at least, seem to be pilots, because she seems to have the credentials. She assumes that she has the credentials because her husband was a pilot for 22 years. There are 2 main male characters in this book, and one of them is a pilot, of course, in the Second World War. I'm German, so I couldn't have picked a better book. I know all about that. The premise of the book is as follows. We have a girl. This girl just got a divorce from a producer husband. She was super famous in New York City and she got a divorce because he cheated on her. And now she's returning home. She has one friend, but she doesn't have anybody else. And she had a grandma. Yeah. That grandma is dead. But she was 100. Which, respect to that. Grandma has passed away. Rip to the grandma. And now the question arises, because this grandma was a famous author, what are we gonna do with her last work? Basically, the mom of the girl is a bitch. She's like addicted to money. Who isn't? Her husband, her 4th husband, is addicted to gambling, and she just kind of uses her daughter, which is the main character, to get more money. And so she was trying to make a deal for this unpublished last book from the grandma, who's the famous author, even though the main character of the book is the one who has like the saying rights, which her grandma decided that she was the one to manage all of her book deals and stuff like that. The girl returns home and finds her mom making a deal in the living room, and she's like, what is going on? And then it's revealed that she pretended to be her daughter and to make this deal because she just wanted the money really bad. And then she's like, okay, wait, like this is unlawful. Of course, you're gonna say, well, the book is unfinished, who's gonna finish it? Well, it's gonna be the hot main dude, who's also a romance author, because a hot man writes romance? I haven't seen that. Sorry. And he's super hot, he has a 6-pack, he also has tattoos, and they don't get along in the beginning, and then they end up fucking on the grandma's desk. And then you're gonna say, okay, that sounds boring. It is very boring, and that is the biggest fault this book has, I feel like. Her writing is very basic. I don't think that Rebecca Yarros is a good writer, not in her 4th Wing series, nor in this. However, obviously when you write romance, you don't have to be as creative as when you write fantasy. That's just a fact, in my opinion. I feel like anybody could write a contemporary book if they tried hard enough. But not everybody could write a fantasy book. Well, you know what? I take that back. I've read so many fantasy at this point, like anybody can write that probably. Anyway, the issue that these two have is they do decide that he's going to finish the existing manuscript from the grandma, but he has to make the ending sad. And he's like, I don't want to do that because your grandma only wrote about happy endings, so I don't want to disappoint the readers because they're going to be so mad, and I'm going to put my career on the line if I write a sad ending, which is what he usually does. He's like, no, I'm not going to do that this time because it's your grandma's book and she only writes happy endings. It's like a back and forth, and you're going to write this and blah, blah, blah. But the best part about this book is, of course, the fact that we also get to read about Nazi Germany. Am I even allowed to say the N-word? Oh, no. No. Not that one, the other one. The one that's related to me. I don't know, I will keep it to a minimum, but basically the books jumps back and forth between the present day, where this dude is trying to finish the book and like convince the girl that it's gonna be a happy ending, and the past, where we get to see the love story that this unfinished manuscript is, because it's basically like an autobiography of the grandma, and it details how the grandma fell in love with the grandpa whose name is Jameson, and he's a pilot in the military. And he himself is fighting the well, I was gonna say N-words, I can't do that. He's fighting the Nazis. And he is from America. It's Jameson, sorry. He's from America, the land of the great and free. And everything in America is better than in the UK / specifically England, which is where he is now, to fight against the Nazis. He himself decided to go to England because he said, they need me. They need me in this war. At this point, I think they started in the 1940s. And then later, it's not funny, sorry. Later, Pearl Harbor gets bombed and he's like, I gotta return. Now I gotta defend my country. I defended your country, I gotta defend my country. This war is my responsibility. And the reason it says America on the sign is because this book, and I don't know if any of you guys have read it even, but if you have, and you are not American, did you think it was a little bit patriotic? It was very patriotic. Not that there's anything wrong with that necessarily, but it was like America shoved down your throat. There were separate conversations between the two main characters, which is the grandma, who's English, and the grandpa, Jameson, who is, and she does come at one point, is Jameson? I don't want to moan the name Jameson. Where he's like, I can't believe they're doing this in England. Like, America would never do this. What about the segregation? That's not an issue that we're talking about. We're just two white main characters. We're not talking about racial issues in this book. We're just talking about the Nazis. So again, main story, trying to finish the ending of the book, the manuscript, the autobiography manuscript, and then it jumps back and forth between the grandma POV, where she falls in love with the grandpa. So we get to see their amazing love story. So let's talk about it more in detail. That's the premise. I hope you got it. The present day is written in first person and it skips between the two main characters' POVs. The girl's named Georgia and the dude is named Noah and he's Italian. Like me. So guys, I am German, but I am part Italian. I don't know why I chose that accent to say that, but I bet you didn't know that about me, except if you're an OG Honestly Sophie fan, because I've said it before. Yeah. The present time is written in first person, and then the grandma's story is written in third person, which was an interesting choice. Definitely doesn't take you out of the book or anything. People call her grandma's writing a modern day Jane Austen, okay? Keep that in mind, because there's like a plot twist at the end, but I'm gonna say at the end, okay? But people say her grandma's like a modern day Jane Austen. She's so good at writing. She just got divorced from her producer husband in New York City, who is a bitch, and it keeps being said like he cheated on her, he got a much younger girl pregnant with bigger tits, and they keep saying like a much younger girl, and I just want to say the main character is 28 and the much younger girl is 22. Anyway, she is now like, you know, going through it after her divorce, so she returns home to Colorado, which funny enough, yeah, who else lives in Colorado? Rebecca Yarros. The first stop before going home, she goes to the bookstore that her grandma helped build, and she visits, and there's a hot man in there. This hot man is so hot on the phone, and he's like, I don't know, complaining about books, and then he approaches her and is like, do these look the same to you? She's like, yeah. And then he's like on the phone like, see, like they look the same, they need a different cover. And then she goes like, oh, they also read the same. And then he's like, what the fuck did you just say to me? And it turns out he's the author. Like, she doesn't know at the time, but like he's the author of those books, right? What's he doing in Colorado? He wants to make the deal. He wants to finish the book from her grandma. He looked about my age, late 20s, maybe early 30s, stood at least 6 feet tall, and his black, just out of bed hair fell carelessly over tanned olive skin before reaching those lifted black brows and impossibly deep brown eyes. His nose was straight, his lips were carved in lush lines that only served to remind me exactly how long I'd gone without being kissed, and his chin was shaded in a light shadowed beard. He was all angular, sculpted lines, and given the flex of muscle in his forearms, I'd bet the store that he was pretty well acquainted with the inside of a gym, ... and probably a bedroom. I love like going somewhere and just sexualizing strangers. It's my favorite pastime. This is a major pet peeve of mine with romance, and I discuss it every time that I talk about romance books. It's fine to have the two main characters find each other attractive from the beginning, because at the end of the day they're not gonna fuck if they think the other one's ugly. But going to the lengths of every time they interact, even though they're supposed to be like hating each other, to mention something about their physical appearance just to make it clear like, no, they're hot, but like they're super hot. I just feel like you're doing too much, and for some reason authors think that two main characters can't fall in love if they don't immediately want to fuck each other from the first moment they see each other. And so because of that, I feel like this emotional connection that you usually need between main characters, this emotional depth, it just gets lost. And so all romance books that I read and review on this channel, they read the same to me. It's always the same spiel, and it's just like, why did I say that in English? It's a German word. Spiel. The mother led us to believe that she was the daughter. He blurted. In what way? Sure, both women were beautiful, but Ava was easily a decade or two older. In the who has the rights to this book way. He's like, the mother's old as fuck. So they've been negotiating this contract for weeks. Turns out the mom was pretending to be the daughter. Turns out that's not so good. So now they're like, what are we gonna do? They present this contract to Georgia, who is the actual person who's responsible. And her mother has fucked her over her entire life. It's made clear in the book that her mother was never really a mother. She had her in high school and then just, you know, abandoned her, left her with her grandma, which is why she has such a close connection to her. Had many husbands, was always just there, or like in it for the money, which is the whole reason she was doing this, because she wanted the fucking money from this contract. She needs money to go back to her gambling husband. Keep that in mind, okay? But anyway, she doesn't really have anybody after this divorce. She's kind of on her own. She has like one friend. And so she's like, okay, I'm gonna see this deal through on the condition that the ending is a bad one. Like, that it fits what grandma's life story was actually like, because it wasn't like a happy end. And then everybody's like, okay, whatever. That's how they make the deal. Her handshake was warm, unlike her crystal sharp blue eyes. There was no kicking that feeling, that hit of instant attraction, even knowing who she really was. I couldn't help it. Her words had left me uncharacteristically stumbling. She was stunning. Exquisite! No. If the word exquisite has no haters, I'm dead. Stop describing people as exquisite. That's like something that you describe a pastry as. Her hair fell in waves so black there was an almost blue shine to it, and the contrast with her delicate ivory skin brought to mind about a million different Snow White references. But I wanted her. I was supposed to know this woman. I felt it with every fiber of my being. You've met her for an extended amount of 5 minutes. I'm scared. She was achingly traffic, stopping, beautiful, with curves for miles and a mind sharp enough to match her tongue. No man in his right mind would cheat on a woman like her. What if she murdered his son? And that's why he cheated. He explains that this is really important to him because he is a huge fan of the books that her grandma has written, and that his mother like got in a car accident at one point, and then she was in a coma, and she was, or maybe not, but anyway, she was bedridden. And he was reading out the books to her that her grandma had written. And by the way, it's not even her grandma, it's her great-grandma. It's very confusing in the book, but I will just leave out the one generation in between because they're not relevant. So I'm not sure why. Well, actually, I feel like we could have skipped a generation. Like, it could have been her grandma, not her great-grandma, but then we wouldn't have gotten the World War II storyline. He says he read out the books to his mother, and he goes, even the satisfying parts, in bold italics. You read out the sex scenes to your mom. Are you weird? Now we get to see the grandma's perspective for the first time. It's in third person. She says to the American Jameson, his accent is lovely. Where are you from? And he goes, Colorado. Do people from Colorado have a lovely accent? Peace and love. I don't know if I believe it. I took like 3 notes on this book because again, it is a contemporary romance or historical romance, so there wasn't much to write down that was happening. I feel like also when I was 20% in, I was like, okay, where are we gonna take this? As I said, there is a plot twist at the end, but this has no payoff at all. We could have gotten the book without the plot twist. Like, it didn't change anything. So why did we write this book in the first place? Because we wanted to write about fucking up. Way that they meet the grandma and the grandpa is they're both in the military, in the English military, and they're both in the Air Force, obviously. He's a pilot and she does some behind the scenes work. I don't remember. And so this is something that her parents disapprove of because they have a title and they want to marry her off to some dude. And she's like, I don't want to marry that dude. He punches women, which is arguably a good reason not to marry someone. And her parents are like, we don't give a fuck, we want the title to be and we need money. And so this is one of the points where the dude from America is like, what? We in America, we do not marry off our women. And then at one point when they do get married, her and Jameson, she's like, are you sure you want to marry me? Like, I can't cook. And he is like confused by this. He's like, okay, whatever, I don't care if you can cook or not. Which is like, we are still in the 1940s. Like, did you not grow up with societal expectations even around you? Like, why is he confused by this statement? Like, even if he doesn't care that she can't cook, he doesn't really care about that housewife ability, it's clear to anyone living in that time that that's something that's expected of a housewife, right? Like, that's not, you don't have to skip too far to get, whatever. He handled the airplane like it was a part of him. Like, flying through the air was as simple as raising his hand. I just feel like that is not good. Like, I feel like I would write as breathing, like raising his hand. It seems odd. That's me nitpicking, but also when they are in the 1940s, they don't really speak differently from the present. Like, the tone of voice is very similar to just the normal times, and I feel like in the 1940s they maybe spoke a little bit differently. But I figure this war is going to spread if we don't stop it, and I'll be damned if I was just going to sit there in Colorado and do nothing while it crept up onto our front porch. America, America, dawn's early light. Thank you, Jameson, for sacrificing your life for Europe. You single-handedly stopped the war. I appreciate it. It's supposed to be this whirlwind romance that they have, right? They are so in love, unbelievably in love, and it's super quick. They get married within like 2 months, and because she gets married to this American, she loses all contact with her family except her sister. Because she has a sister who's very prominent in these flashbacks. I assume that these flashbacks are supposed to be the story, like the grandma's manuscript, because it is autobiography. I can't say that word. Which only the ending part, when we get to read the ending that the dude has written for the grandma. That's why I'm guessing that. And if she is the modern day Jane Austen and that is the manuscript that I am reading, I am inclined to disagree with that statement. Anywho, her sister now has to get married to the wife beater because she decided to decline the marriage. And it's because her sister's fiance, who was an army officer, gets killed, and so then she's like obviously super super sad. She's grieving him and she's like, I'm never gonna find happiness again. And her parents are like, okay, you're gonna marry the wife beater, and she's like, yeah, like that's just gonna be what I have to do. So that's what the sister is doing, right? And so the the other sister, the main character, the grandma, whose name is Scarlett, by the way, do you care? I'm just gonna say grandma. You were always meant for happiness, Constance, and I'm so sorry that my choices robbed you of so many chances to find it. If I had to marry a wife beater because you declined, I would not forgive you. I'd rather have my sister get beat up than me. Why does anybody have to marry the wife beater? Put him in jail. So again, a 22-year-old blonde with much bigger breasts than the ones filling my healthy C cup. I feel like C cup isn't that like a good amount, like much big, like what, why do you want to go much bigger? And also you're 28, so what's the big deal? For some reason, we wanted to give the main character, Georgia is her name, some depth. I think I already said that. We wanted to give her some depth, and so she needs a hobby, and her hobby for some reason is glass blowing. like shaping things out of glass. Seems an oddly specific and also oddly like expensive hobby to me that I feel like she... How do you even get there? I do feel like that's an oddly specific hobby. Ooh. Our grandma was really famous. Like, she had almost 100 books. Wait, how many was it? 70 something books published that were very successful. So they were well off. So she could afford it. But it's just like, out of all of the hobbies, why that? Especially because it's like, oh, she went to art school. She's super creative. But she kind of let that drop when she got married because of her bitch ass husband. And then I just wonder, like, couldn't she just paint? Why glass blowing? They keep arguing back and forth. Well, they want to fuck each other, but they keep arguing back and forth because she obviously wants a, like, not a sad ending, but just like a true to life ending where her grandma didn't end up with the dude she met in the war, because he died, actually, spoiler, he died in the war, but instead she came to America and found a new American man from Colorado, and he's like, okay, I want it to be a happy ending and also give me the original copy of the manuscript. And she's like, why the fuck would you want the original copy of the fucking manuscript? And he's like, well, I'm the writer. I'm not editing it, I'm just writing. And she's like, okay, you can do that with a copy. And they have like these unnecessary back and forth where I'm just like, why, what are we even arguing about? Like, it's so unnatural. No two people would ever argue about this kind of situation. I don't even know who he thinks he is. He's a man at the end of the day. No hate to the men watching. It's revealed in the past that the grandma has to marry the wife beater, who she refuses to marry because she's in love with the Jameson, and he finds this out through the paper because her parents publish it through the paper before even telling her. And then Jameson is like, how could you do this, you fucking bitch? Not exactly like that, but then they get bombed. A lot of things in this book happen, and then there's just bombs, which... yeah. She doesn't want it to have a happy ending, I growled, killing the music pumping through my head, my phone. She doesn't understand what her great-grandmother's branding was. Scarlett Stanton is a guaranteed happy ending. Her readers expected. And this entire time, it's just like, okay, but why don't we announce that this is semi-autobiographical, right? That this is not just an ordinary romance book, but this is her life story. And it wasn't a happy ending. But nobody ever thinks of that option. Anyway, the side plot that's going on is her ex-husband. He's a producer, as I mentioned. He has the rights to 10 of the books to make them into movies. And obviously he wants the rights to this book. She says no, and that's that. But it's not very... it's like not a very big plot point. Like, you would imagine that this would be maybe more of an issue and that also, like, he would haggle her more and stuff like that, but realistically in the present timeline there is no stakes and we're not stressing over anything. We're just hanging out, you know, we're just hanging out the entire book. There's nothing going on, and there's also like nothing changes about the characters throughout the entire book. They have a scene where they go rock climbing because that's bouldering is his hobby, but outside. And she doesn't want to do it because she doesn't trust him. And it's pages on pages of them arguing back and forth, and I just skipped it because I was like, this is so unnecessary. It was evident that she was refusing to do it, and then later in the book she would do it, and it's supposed to be like her overcoming her past and like trusting people again and realizing that she only has to trust herself or something like that. It was written in a way where it was like pages upon pages of them arguing and him like bantering back and forth, and it's just like, okay, we get it. Like, does this have to be 10 pages long? Peace and love. The fucking bouldering. As I mentioned, her and her mother don't have a good relationship because her mom is a bitch, and because of this deal she decided, her mom told her like before she signed the contract for the deal that she was broke, and because I think, well actually no, I don't think, the grandma gave Georgia the rights to speak for her in regards to her books, but she didn't realistically like leave her any money because she had a charity, and she was like, my money is supposed to go to charity, and so she has to figure that out. But she herself doesn't really have that much money. She only has the money that is left from her savings that she had with her husband. Why doesn't she have any money? Anyway, she doesn't have any money. She's a brokey, and so her mom is like, I'm broke, thinking that she has a lot of money and can give her some money, and she's like, I don't have any money either. And then she's like, okay, but I love you, mom, and I want to rebuild this relationship. I'm 28, you've only fucked me over my entire life. But it's like, I don't want to be mean, but it's just like, I don't buy it. I mean, she is a little bit distraught after the divorce, so I'll give her a pass. But anyway, her mom is like, I really need some money. And then she's like, okay, I'm gonna make it so that the money for this book deal goes to you. And then she's like, okay, where's the money for the deal? Like, because it's split up, you get some money before the book is published and then after. And then Georgia is like, it's not delivered at once, like you get it in increments. And then she has a bad feeling about this because she's like, why is mom asking about the fucking money? What's going on? Like, she just wants the money and then she's gonna leave again like she's done for the past 28 years. But I don't wanna assume anything. And when she gets the money, she does leave, so she should have assumed. Her best friend takes it upon herself to get her laid by Noah, the author. She sends her a picture of him shirtless and he has abs for days. And the thing is, like, I think bouldering alone, like doing just like rock climbing alone, it's super boring. It's super straining and you do get a lot of muscle from it, definitely, like, because you're using your whole body weight. But I just imagine, like, actually getting abs for days from bouldering. I think you get more lean in that area. But anyway, that might just be me. Like, he doesn't go to the gym is what I'm trying to say. She decides to take up her old hobby of glass blowing. And she wants to open a studio or a shop or whatever. Are that many people interested in glass blowing? In purchasing glass blowing items? Apparently in Colorado, in a 300 people town they are. I don't know how many people are there. She visits the store and she's like, oh my god, if I buy this store, like, I'm not gonna have any money in my savings account anymore. So I'm gonna think about it. But she does end up buying it later. No, she has no money. So there's no blowjob happening at all. Whether it's in the glass blowing vicinity or the other. But allegedly she does do glass blowing, but we just don't see it. And I feel like if she had developed those things more, I feel like in this entire book, Rebecca Yarros was focusing on the wrong things. If she had focused more on other things, she could have developed the characters more and it made them feel a little bit closer. Whatever. Back in the past, her sister, the grandma's sister, explains that her fiance doesn't want to get married because he wants to wait until after the war, which makes no sense to me. He's in love. Like, who the fuck was like, I'm gonna wait until after the war to get married? If you are in active war and you don't know how long it's gonna last, wouldn't you be like, I love you so much, I'm gonna marry you right now? Time is imminent, like, time is running. There was something very wrong here. Georgia looked ... off, as though she had just been delivered the kind of news you had to sit down to hear. Not that she wasn't as beautiful as always, because we all assumed that. He now suddenly found her ugly. This is when her mother leaves, because she just got the money. And she doesn't return until she opens up her glass blowing shop that she now has. It's a grand opening. And Noah was the one to invite her, the mother, to this opening, because otherwise she wouldn't have come. Because he figures out that they have a bad relationship and it's, I don't know. It's complicated and they have a very strained relationship and it goes back very far, like to her young years, not teenage, young child. What am I saying? So far that she was raised by her grandma instead of her actual mother. Her mother is Ash Trevino. Yeah. And he decides, I'm just going to invite her to the shop opening and they're gonna heal their relationship that has been strained for 28 years. It's just gonna magically heal them. I don't think that's how it works. Anyway, the best friend of hers, who is not relevant, says at one point that she should jump the Noah dude, the hot author. Next time she sees him, she's like, oh, my friend thinks I should jump you. And they all associate with fucking, but I only know jumping as in she wants to murder him. She extends the whole issue with her ex-husband to this rock climbing expedition that they're on, which I mentioned. The last man who promised to keep me safe screwed his lead and dropped me on my ass. But I'm sure you already know that. Everyone knows that. What does this have to do with rock climbing? You think he's gonna drop you and kill you? Like, I know what she was trying to do with the metaphor and everything. It's not working. If you're wondering what's happening with the grandma, she fell in love with her American dude, her American pilot. They got married. She got disowned by her family. They are, of course, fearing for each other's lives, especially her when he's going on a mission. And they have sex, and we read the grandma sex, yeah. We read the grandma sex, and for some reason, and I thought really hard about this, but I am 100% certain that condoms existed in the 1940s and were actively handed out to soldiers because they didn't want to have the soldiers have STDs. She gets pregnant. And it's supposed to be like a big deal. She's pregnant during the war. They wanted to wait until after the war to have children. Okay, then why were you raw dogging it every night? I'm sorry, like, condoms were a thing and it's not even brought up at any point here. So I don't feel any compassion. She gets pregnant, she has the child without Jameson there because he's on a mission, and then they raise the child together, and that's it. Back in present day, it's actually Halloween, and this is, I think, maybe the first time they fuck, the two main characters. This is over 50% in the book, by the way. Like, we're almost done with the book already, and they're still arguing about the ending, and he's like, I'm just gonna write 2 endings, and then you can decide which one is better, like a sad one and a happy one. And she's like, okay, we can do that. But anyway, it's Halloween, and there's children at the door, and then for some reason, the dude says, wow, nice Fortnite skin. Which is interesting because, number one, this book was written or published in 2021, so it was during the lockdown, and a lot of people were playing Fortnite, and so I'm sure her many sons that she has were playing Fortnite, and that's how she knows it, and it's like a nod to them. However, Fortnite is only mentioned here, and there are no other references that date this book besides Fortnite, which is why it sticks out even more, because it's the only pop culture reference that you have in the entire book. Other than that, it's just like ambiguous, and also it doesn't mean anything. What a nice Fortnite skin, Noah said behind me. His voice alone sending a thrill down my spine. She's getting wet because he said nice Fortnite skin. Thanks, the boy waved. Thank you, his sister added. The two raced back to their parents and started to walk down the drive, leaving footprints in the fresh inch of fallen snow. And that's it. That's the only time Fortnite is brought up. She's not like, what's Fortnite? Or like, do you game? Do you play Fortnite? Oh my god, the last thing I marked was, you too, Squirt. And then I didn't mark anything else. He calls his sister Squirt, because the dude has a sister. Anyway, I can just sum up the rest that happens. As you can tell, if you've watched to this point, nothing happens in this book. It's very boring. This is the problem that I have with all contemporary romance. Like, it's just, you know, all encompassing and never changing with contemporary romance. This is so fucking boring. If you guys have recommendations for contemporary romance where something actually happens, you know, recommend them to me. But for me, for the most part, they all read the same, and Rebecca Yarros is no exception. I also think compared to Fourth Wing, this is very similar in the writing. Like, in the sense that she didn't start writing better when she was writing Fourth Wing. Like, she hadn't evolved as an author. They're fighting between the endings. He finishes 2 endings, and then she's like, okay, because they started fucking after the Fortnite skin incident, she's like, I just don't want to commit because I just left my husband and I don't want to get married again. She's like, immediately, we have to get married if we fuck, you know? She's ex-Mormon allegedly, so that fits. She's like, okay, this is just a fling, as long, like, you're writing the book here and you're finishing it here, and as soon as it's finished, you're leaving to New York again, because that's where he's from, and you're going to leave me alone, and we just, like, had a good time. And he does not agree with this because he's in love with her. He goes, I love you. Not right now, but later. He agrees to this. He finishes the book and he's like, I cannot leave her. I love her. So he calls his agent and he sends over the book without telling her that he finished it, like 2 versions of it, which everybody in the book keeps complaining that he finished 2 different endings, but it keeps being reiterated. It's only the last third. So the first 2/3 of the book stayed the same from the original, and he just finished the last third of it, and he's like, oh, my editor was complaining he had to finish 2 books, and it's like, not really. You had to finish 1 book and then just the ending of the other. It's not like he changed everything. He finishes it, he sends it off to his editor, he doesn't tell her. He tells her that he has to stay for like another month or 2 to finish it, like he can't make his deadline or whatever, and she believes him. Well, it was a lie. He finished the book. He was just pretending that he still had to do things. He was just editing it, right? He was like doing copy edits with his editor. It was finished writing, but she didn't know. So he lied to her. She gets really mad at this, and she's like, get the fuck out. When she finds out, you're a fucking liar. And the reason she finds out is because she owns her fucking glass-blowing shop. Her mom comes, everything's happy. She finds her mom taking pictures of the manuscript without her knowledge to send it off to her ex-husband because he wants to produce the movie. And she's like, oh, so you are here for money, mommy. You're here for the money. And she's like, yeah, I'm here for the money, bitch. I need fucking money. And so she throws out her mom, her mom is the one who reveals that he has already finished the books. So she's like, okay, you fuck ass, you also leave the fucking house. And then she's alone. While she is alone, she is really sad. And while he is gone, he decides to also be really sad, but also do research. The thing is, sadly, the Jameson dude died. in a plane crash during the Second World War. He was attacked, and then, like, obviously he's flying the fucking aircraft, he gets shot by Nazis, and he then dies in the sea. But because he crashed in the sea, his body was never recovered, and so in the past, the grandma was like, oh, I don't believe he's dead, there's a chance he's still alive, he was taken hostage, blah, blah, blah. And she kind of refuses to leave, but then eventually is like, okay, I'm gonna go to Colorado where his family is, because I'm safer in America than in England from the Nazis. Okay, all is good and dandy, so that's happening, but since they never recovered the body, he kind of wanted to do it because he has a lot of money. The only thing he ends up finding is his wedding ring. So he's like, oh yeah, I think I found him like in the sea. It's too deep to recover, but I found his wedding ring, and it's like, the engraving is like J and S. And so it's like, yeah, that's gotta be him. Anyway, they're still fighting though. She ends up reading the endings, and she's like, no, you gotta go with the sad one, because my grandma's story ended sadly because her husband died and she left to Colorado on her own. And what happens then? You wonder. Her grandma had actually done something really nice, which is she scheduled for packages to arrive for Georgia on important dates. Okay, we knew this throughout the entire book. She sent her like a Halloween costume and stuff like that, and flowers on her birthday or something, and was like, oh, this is from grandma, like, I'm already dead, but here's your present. She receives a present on her 7th wedding anniversary, and it's 3 letters. And this is where the big plot twist happens. In these letters, it's revealed that her grandma wasn't her grandma, it was the grandma's sister. Oh my god. Basically, and to me this doesn't make any sense, the grandma's husband died, which she was like, oh, maybe he's still alive, blah, 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 but we know he wasn't still alive. She still makes her way to Colorado because of her visa. She got a visa and it was running out and blah, blah, blah. She had to go to Colorado whether she knew he was dead or alive, whatever. So she makes her way to Colorado in a car. She's driving to the airport with her sister and the baby on the back seat. They get bombed on the way to the airport, and she's like, oh my god, takes her child out of the back seat. My sister, where's my sister? The sister's laying on the floor, she's bleeding, and she's like, oh my god, my sister is dead. It says like, Constance is dead. She wasn't, she is alive. She wakes up, she's like, I'm alive, and so she hugs the child and the grandma, and it turns out the grandma is actually dying. And then she's dead. The grandma dies. The child doesn't. She grabs the child, she grabs a purse, she leaves. Or she doesn't leave, she like calls for help. She's like, I gotta get the baby to Colorado. And so she jumps in the car and she realizes she took the wrong purse. She took her sister's purse that has her sister's papers and ID that says Scarlett, and her name is Constance. And her sister has the bag that says Constance. So because they look so similar, she's like, okay, whatever, I'm gonna be Scarlett now. So she flies to Colorado with the baby, pretending to be the dead pilot's wife, Scarlett, and pretending that her sister, Constance, died, but she is Constance, okay? And so her grandma reveals this, well, her grandma's sister reveals this to her in her letters, that she wasn't actually the grandma that everyone always assumed. And it's just like, okay, why did we take this to the grave with us? Because she did remarry in America, like, I think 30 years after the war ended. She found an American man, and she decided to marry him. Yeah, that's it. Anyway, that's the big plot twist reveal, and when people are like, oh, this is an emotional masterpiece, I cried reading this book, they usually refer to this scene because it's like a really long manifesto. Not really, like, I think it's just the perspective of the lady again, and then it's a manifesto and whatever. I really didn't give a fuck. The thing that confused me is, why was the grandma the great writer? Because when she arrived in Colorado with the baby, she pretended to be her sister, she pretended to be the mother of the baby, blah, 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 the grieving wife, but she was grieving for her sister and everyone else she had lost, right? So that was accurate, but she wasn't grieving for the reasons that they thought she was. And her sister was known to be a storyteller and a writer. People were like telling her like, oh, are you gonna write something? When are you gonna write something? Blah, blah, blah. And she was like, oh, because she wasn't a writer, you know what I mean? But she did end up taking her sister's manuscripts, or like started stories, because it was never really explained how much she had actually written of those stories. Just sometimes mentioned that she had written stuff, and just like changed them up a little bit and like wrote them better or whatever. And then she ended up publishing those and became the modern day Jane Austen, pretending to be her sister, whose love had died in the war. Which, important to mention, her love had died in the war. Like, she had a fiance that had died, an officer that had died, but people just didn't know. And then what's also confusing to me is she didn't like the dude that Georgia ended up marrying, the producer. She was like, he's an awful man, blah, blah, blah. She knew what an awful marriage could do to you because she had been married to the wife beater for a period of time, and he did beat her. And how being dependent of a man is like not the way to go. Like, the grandma knew that, the grandma, sister, whatever, knew that. And then she still left all her money to charity and not to Georgia. Okay. She was like, if I have to be dependent on a man in the 1940s, you gotta be too. We're not changing that. Because of this, she decides, okay, we're gonna go with the happy ending for the book. Because the entire time she was like, Grandma's story wasn't a happy one because she lost the love of her life, the pilot, and then she remarried 30 years later, but it was just like, it wasn't the same. But then, you know, it was the grandma's sister, and she was really happy with the dude because whatever, you know, it's different. So she was like, quick, change the ending, change it to the happy one. And he finds this out because after going on his expedition to recover the fucking whatever. He comes to her house, he's like, what the fuck did you do? What the fuck did you do? Because he assumed, he for some reason didn't talk to anyone, that the sad ending was still being published. And then he finds out that the happy one was published because he has a talk with his mom or his sister on the phone. Oh, I think his mom is dead. With his sister on the phone. No, with his mom. Who cares? Again, does it matter? And she's like, I love the ending. Like, it's so sweet. The ending is so sweet. It's perfect. Like, you really did write like her. And he's like, what the fuck do you mean? I did a sad ending. She's like, no, you didn't. And so he rushes to Georgia's house and he's like, what the fuck did you do? Who the fuck do you think you are? He like yells at her, like, why the fuck did you do this? Which I don't understand where this is coming from. Like, why are you mad? Like, this, it was her decision at the end of the day. Who gives a fuck? Everybody loves it. And she goes, I did it because I love you. And it's like, no, you didn't. You did it because you realized that the story wasn't a sad one, but a happy one for your grandma's sister. Thank God. Anyway, guys, that's how the book ends. Well, it ends on her being pregnant, married to this man, and hopefully they have many children to further support the American economy. Thank God they're in Colorado, because Colorado is the best state according to Rebecca Yarros. I just assume. I never saw her say this. I just making things up. Don't sue me. This book was really, really boring. The love letters, you get them at the beginning of every chapter. Oh, they were so boring. It was always just like, genuinely, because also the dude is called Jameson, maybe you say Jameson and not Jameson, I made it up. And it sounds so close to Jason. And he's a pilot in the army and blah blah blah. It's just like, did she take her own letters that she wrote to her husband and put them in this book? I don't know, it just kind of made me, give me the ick a little bit. Shout out to the American veterans. Thank you for your service. I hope everybody thanks me for my service and for serving today. Let me know if you've read this book, if you've read any of her other contemporary books. As I said, I was debating reading the Afghan War one, but I feel like it was just too extreme for me. Like, I just wouldn't be able to hold it together. And then also her first book. But maybe when her new contemporary book comes out that she's writing right now or is going to be writing soon, maybe I'm gonna read that. Depends on what it's about. If it's about another pilot in the military, then maybe not. I want to give a shout out to all of my members. Thank you so much for supporting me. My members get my videos usually a day early. Sorry guys. I know it didn't work out for this one, but it did have a sponsor, so you know. They get to vote on my reads and they vote on what I read, and the book that's getting reviewed next is When the Moon Hatched, which my members voted for. I also get exclusive content such as my Ruby Red movie commentary, and I'm planning on doing more movie commentary this year for my members, so if that's something you're interested in, you can also consider becoming a member. Peace and love, peace and love. You can follow me on my socials on Instagram at honestlysophie.yt, on Goodreads at honestlysophie. Send me a friend request. I want to be friends with everybody in the world, except the bad people. And on TikTok at honestlysophie. YT. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave your thoughts and prayers in the comments. Let me know what you thought. And I hope you stay happy, you stay healthy, peace and love. And hopefully, I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.